Questions before we get started. All right, take it away, Daniel.
Okay, so we have updated the intranet with some new forms. So we have the in-state travel KDADS 1 and the out-of-state travel KDADS 2. We also have some step-by-step instructions. And we also have the links to the PowerPoint presentations for travel authorizations and expense reports. And these are all live. They're available now and free to be used. So on the in-state travel KDADS 1, this is used by everybody except for facility surveyors anytime they're traveling, whether it'll be any kind of expense that they are going to incur. And it is similar if you have filled out the Excel spreadsheet that we currently have. The main difference is that it is entirely through DocuSign. It's all electronic. And so this link will always be good. It'll always be updated through the intranet and always be available to you. And it will guarantee that you get a copy of it back once it is fully executed. So you start off by filling in your name. Most web browsers are going to save the information you've been in here before, so hopefully it'll be a little bit easier for you as you go to fill it out. Requester, you'll enter in your name, your email address. If you have not created an account with DocuSign, it may prompt you to at the end, then we'll go over that as well. But your name, your email address, your supervisor's name and email address. This will be who it goes to immediately once you have completed the form, and your KDADS commissioner. And this will be who it goes to once your direct supervisor approves and signs off on it. In some instances, it may be the same person. That is fine. And they'll only have to sign once. Once that person has signed one time, it'll move on to the next stage. The final stage will be KDADS travel. And it just ensures that they get a copy once it's been fully executed as well. So once all that information is filled in, you'll just click begin signing. Load up, and you'll get this little information box. Gives you the option to finish later, so you can save it and come back at a later time. Doing that will require you to have an account you can log in with, but that account is free.
Hey, Daniel. Sorry to interrupt. We've got a quick question, and it's come through quite a few times about who should and should not use the form. A lot of people said they missed that exact part where you said about the form, it's for everyone except XYZ. So can we
Everyone
go that
except, sure. It's for everyone, for all travel, except for facility surveyors who are doing their normal job duties of surveying facilities and doing reviews. All travel outside of that specific instance will use these forms. That cleared up for everybody? Okay, gonna assume so. If not, you can follow up in the chat. But yeah, this is for all travel where any kind of expense is going to be incurred. So using a rental car, staying in a hotel overnight, having meals, any of that stuff, any travel where expenses will be incurred needs to have this form. Once you start, it's going to run through, again, a lot of the same information you're used to if you've used any of the your employee ID. And it's going to have these yellow tooltip boxes that pop up for every field explaining what goes in there. So your name, your employee ID, your domicile city, which is your traveler resident city, the city that you live in, and your official station. This may be the same, it may be different. This is going to be set through HR and what they have determined your official station to be. Again, it's just the city, not necessarily a specific address. Title of the session. So this is another required field. It's going to be the name of the travel or the conference, a description of what your travel is going to be for, and the destination city, which is the city that you are traveling to. Dates of the conference or meeting. So this will be the dates when you will actually be working in that city that you're traveling to, and your dates of absence from office, which may be different if you have to leave the night before, if you have to get flights, the dates that you're wanting to fly out and fly back. These are going to be the dates the actual travel will fully encompass, and the date of the conference will be the dates that the actual work will be being done in that city. Is the travel Medicaid related? Yes or no? If you're not sure, you may check with your supervisor or your commissioner, but it's just a checkbox yes or no as to whether or not the work you're going to be doing on this travel is related to Medicaid. Will any of this travel be funded by a grant or special funding, by third-party funding? So this will be if you are going to be traveling to present at a conference and the conference is going to pay part of your travel expenses. And then whether it's neither grant or third-party funding. So if it's going to be all funded by the state, you would check the third box. One of those boxes is required to be checked. So if it's not one of the first two, then it'll be the third one. If it is grant, special funding, or third-party funding, explain here in the box under the source. So you can just say that you're presenting at the conference and they're paying for your travel. You can say which grant you're using to fund it because you're traveling as part of a grant to go to a training or a conference. Just an explanation of how the travel will be paid for, if it's being paid for by a third party or not state general funds. The justification for the request. So this will be where you will explain why you're traveling, why is this traveler training needed, what's the relation to your job duties, how does it benefit the state, why are we paying you to go on this travel, why are we paying for this travel to take place. You will also need to attach the brochure or the flyer or some kind of documentation for what this travel is that can help us out over in this department as we're trying to find things to make bookings, and explain exactly what this trip is for if it comes up under audit. Then we get into the estimated costs. It's kind of the meat of the form here. This is what we're going to use to authorize the funds that can be used for this trip. We do always say to estimate high when you have an option to do so. So your meals, you should always estimate for the full day, things of that nature. So your first option is your mode of transportation, whether it's state fleet vehicle, a rental vehicle, or a private vehicle. One of these three should be selected because you're going to be having to get there somehow. If you are using a private vehicle, you do need to complete the rental comparison in order to get the rate that you're going to be reimbursed. That is again available on the intranet, your DA 127 mileage versus rental comparison log. Again, just fill out this form and it calculates most of everything for you. So you got your name, the dates of your travel, what city you're coming from, what city you're going to. All the instructions are on here. So you enter the number of days, your miles per gallon, history of fuel price per gallon, cost of a rental car, and total mileage to determine the cost analysis. So all of that will go in there to give you the rental rate versus your private mileage. We're able to reimburse the cheaper of the two. We are required by DOA to use the most cost-effective method of travel that is available to us. So when a state vehicle is available, that's what we have to use. If we have to use a rental vehicle or private vehicle, whatever is the most cost-effective method, that's what we're able to pay for. And again, it's got the note here that if it's selected, your day 127 has to be completed and it has to be attached to this form. That way it's all together. Registration. So if you're going to a conference, there's any kind of a registration fee, the total of that will need to be entered here, and a registration deadline. So if there's an early bird deadline that we need to know about, or what date we have to have that registration completed by, that goes here. Entering it on this side. So the right-hand column automatically tabulates. You can't enter anything there. You just enter it on the left-hand side. It will automatically flow. So if that's the number used to use a rental vehicle, enter your number of days and your rate. It'll automatically calculate, fill in on the estimated costs, and that will flow down. The registration fee and your deadline for your registration. And the conference website URL. So this will be the website where we can get all the information for the conference as far as dates, registration links, the information that we will need in FISC to be able to complete the registration for you will all go into this box. Right now, the traveler is not authorized to register, so the travel team will be in contact regarding next steps. You're not at this time authorized to register yourself for conferences, things like that. It should all be done through FISC with our help at this point. Next, you get into lodging, you get your number of nights, the rate, which is standard or the KC Metro. Those are the only two rates within the state of Kansas at this time. So if you're not in the KC Metro area, you select the standard rate. And then the dates of your check-in and check-out so that we can make the hotel reservations for you. Alternative rate. So sometimes you'll run into things like if you're staying at a conference, they charge more than that standard rate in either of those areas. We are authorized to pay the conference rate to get you into a conference hotel, or on rare occasion, there's something big going on where the rates for the entire town have been raised. Things like the state fair, which we regularly see every hotel in town being booked in Hutchinson. So we have to get a special authorization and exemption from that in order to be able to pay that higher rate. So the alternative rate will go here, and then we'll get that authorization from the Department of Administration to be able to pay that extra rate. Name of the hotel or motel. And if you have a preferred hotel or a list of hotels that you would prefer to work in addition to that one, if that one isn't available for any reason, those can go down here. And again, the note that if an alternative rate is needed, just justify and explain and provide your supporting documentation. So if you contacted 2 or 3 different hotels trying to find one that would give us the state rate and none of them are available close to the conference or close to where you're going, all of that can go in here so that we can use that to get the exemption we'll need in order to be able to pay more than what the standard rate is. Request for travel and or training state. So we could come down to the estimated cost, you got the number of days traveling, your meal rate. Again, this should match the rate that's selected up above for your hotel using standard rate. It automatically calculates, again, using the full day of meals, even though you may have less on your actual expense report. Got your note that the meal calculation is an estimate. The amount you'll be reimbursed for meals depends on your departure time, return time, and meals provided. So if the hotel provides breakfast, if the conference provides lunch, if you don't leave until 4 in the afternoon, you're not going to be reimbursed for breakfast that day for those quarters that are covered when you're not in a travel status. So all of that will be determined on your actual expense report, but just to authorize the travel and to get the funds encumbered, we want to use the highest estimate that we can. And we'd under your miscellaneous expenses. So anything that wasn't covered up above that may cost money. So got your examples of fuel, parking, taxi, tolls, Uber. And you'll just enter, break those down to this box, what you estimate they will be, and total them up over on the right hand side. This will be the one box that you can edit. That'll automatically again calculate that total into your total estimated cost. So this is going to be the amount that's authorized. Your cost for this trip should not exceed that amount. Um, but again, your total reimbursement will actually depend upon your true expenses and the receipt that you provide. But keep in mind that we are going to need receipts for any of these additional expenses when they're available. If you take an Uber, you can get that printout from your app. You can give us credit card statements or fuel receipts. If you are using your own personal K tag to pay tolls, you can get that printout. All we need is the actual expenses that you're paying so that we can reimburse those. But once everything looks good, your numbers look good, everything makes sense to you as far as what you're actually going to be spending that's work related on this trip, it'll fill the date for you automatically. You click the sign button, adopt and sign. It'll let you know if there are any errors, take you back up to the top to fill out anything that's missing, pop up your box tooltip that you need to attach your documentation for whatever there is. And once you sign, it'll automatically flow into the approval work list and go to your supervisor. They will get an email letting them know that they have a DocuSign document given to review, and we'll go from there.
So Daniel, we have a few questions, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So the first one is from Stephanie Reinhardt, and she said sometimes the flyers are pretty big. So could we just attach a link to the flyer for the conference or the conference that they're attending or the event?
The link should go in the box that's below for the conference registration link, but the flyer itself should be attached to this form. So you can download the flyer and attach it, even if it's several megabytes, it should still fit on there when saved as a PDF. I'm not aware of a document size limit in terms of what you can attach.
So Stephanie, hopefully that answers your question. We still need the flyer, the true flyer, not just the link. You'll use the link below where he was showing for the conference. And then Mary T has a question, and she wants to know the surveyors, do they still need to do the K1 form?
The surveyors will use the K1 anytime they travel outside of their normal day-to-day duties. So if they're traveling for a big, like a division meeting, or they have some other kind of a conference they're going to, they would fill it out. They don't need to fill it out for their day-to-day survey responsibilities.
Very good. So that answers that. Jamie Boone, she said, hey, do we have a preferred hotel chain? If they don't have a specific hotel that they want to use or they're not feeling strongly about it, does the state of Kansas have a preferred hotel chain?
We do not, and we are not able to enter into any agreements with hotel chains in order to do that. The Board of Administration has pretty strict guidelines. Most of the hotels that want to enter into agreements like that require a minimum number of nights stay you're going to give them, and we are not able to do that with any hotel chain. So we do not have any preferred hotel chain. Any hotel that will give you the state rate, we do not have a preference where you stay. You can stay anywhere you like that will give you the rate that falls within our guidelines.
Perfect. Okay. And then Lilith asked, do we need to do a KDAD 1 for a conference in Topeka? Lilith, you may want to hop on and give more information, more context.
I can give kind of a general information. If the conference is in Topeka and you live in Topeka, if there's a cost for the registration for the conference, you would still need to fill one out. But if there are no costs associated with it, you would not need a KDADS 1. If you look outside of Topeka and you're going to be traveling to Topeka, so you need like a hotel room or a rental car or something of that nature, something that's going to incur costs, you would still need to fill one out to come to Topeka. But if you live and your official station's in Topeka, there will be no costs associated with your attendance, then you would not need to fill out a KDADS 1.
Perfect. Okay, that seems to explain it. Lilith, can you hear me? Can you unmute? Does that answer your question? Okay, we're gonna go with yes. Unless we see something else. Jamie Boone, can you unmute, please? You've got quite a few questions along the same vein.
Well, Gina answered the one and then I was just replying back. So I was just seeing if I could add in no preference if I don't have a preference. After she said that she just finds the closest one. I'm good.
Okay, perfect. John Stahlbomber, when we travel, stay in the KC metro area and non-KC area on the same trip. How will this be calculated? Daniel, I think that's you.
It'll be calculated using the highest rate. So if any part of the travel occurs in the KC metro area, use the KC metro rates because that will cover the whole trip. You won't be reimbursed for duplicate quarters, so there won't be any risk of going over what you've been authorized for. The way that it actually breaks down is that whenever you move between rate areas, you are reimbursed the new rate area for that entire quarter. So if you work from 5 a.m. to 11 o'clock in KC Metro and then travel to Leavenworth or Atchison and you get there at 11:30, that 11:30 quarter from 6 a.m. to 11:59 a.m. would all be reimbursed at the standard rate for Atchison. So there'll be no issue with that. So just always use the highest rate that you're going to be in for that given time period.
And then John, you had another question. Do you just want to pop on? John Stahlbomber?
Yeah, what was I honestly don't remember what my question was.
You said OAA SCA quality review has completed making our own hotel reservations. Are we able to continue to make our own hotel reservations?
Correct, right. We've always, in the past, up until this point, have always made our own reservations. I'm just wondering if that's still allowable based on this new process.
Yes, that will continue.
Okay, thank you.
Right, I think that takes care of you, John. Taylor, Daniel, Taylor wants to make sure that we let people know if they want the final version of the KDADS 1 form, they need to place their name in a specific location. She said that this came out when Tyler had the group of testers testing.
That I believe has been resolved.
Okay.
So
all right. So we don't have to worry about it.
The requester. Correct.
All right. Thanks, Taylor, for bringing it up, but it sounds like it's been resolved. So everything should be golden. Teresa, instead of completing two different K1s and the smart travel auth, could they be combined together and provide notifications to commissioners and the secretary so they know of any travel requests? And so, Teresa, this is two separate things. The KDADS 1 is internal to KDADS. It's pre-approval for training or travel. But the smart travel auth, I mean, that's to get you paid. That's officially to get you paid, and that's in the smart system. Daniel, do you want to speak to this further?
Yep. The main reason that we can't do that is because of the way that smart workflow moves. We aren't able to add or delete people as needed in that workflow. So, for instance, for out-of-state travel, there's no way to have a travel authorization entered in SMART flowed to the commissioner for approval, but commissioner approval is required for any out-of-state travel. And so this is the way for us to get around that and make sure that we have that documented approval from everybody that needs to have it prior to it going into SMART for our documentation. You shouldn't have to fill out two separate forms. It'll just be one form for each trip in terms of the KDADS 1. So you'll never use both of them. If you're going out of state, it'll just be the out of state form. If you're staying in state, it'll just be the in state form. So, but we do require both the KDADS 1, which gets budgetary approval. That's the primary reason that we have to have this additional form rather than just doing it all in SMART. This form does go to budget, so they can make sure that we have funds available for it, and they can sign off on it before it goes into SMART to begin that process of encumbering the funds.
So I wish we could tell you yes, we could all combo it, Teresa, but we can't. So hopefully that answers your question. Mark Ditzler, Daniel, he's asking about the mill reimbursement time elements. Can you show that again so that everyone can see where they can find it?
Yeah, it won't actually come up until you are filling out your expense report, but there is a meals and incidentals calculation worksheet that's on the intranet. This covers how to enter that. Smart used to calculate this automatically, but since the latest change that was implemented, it no longer does. Meals are paid out by the quarter. So every quarter or every day broken down into 4 quarters, 12 a.m. to 5:59 a.m., 6 a.m. to 11:59 a.m., so forth. So the way that it's broken down on the worksheet, you just enter your departure time using a decimal, not a colon, what your daily rate is. That'll give you what's calculated in the green, and if any meals are provided during that day.
Perfect.
If you have
That's
multiple,
helpful.
go ahead.
All right. So then Bronson Farmer, he's asking if surveyors are staying in a hotel or renting a car in the course of normal site visits, do we need to fill this out?
No, again, for surveyors, you don't have to use that form. Things will continue as they have been. You don't need to fill these out as you haven't been. Your process will continue.
Right. No change, Bronson. Katrina, how does this work for contract workers? Do we continually do the DA 127 each time, even though we have no option but to use our own vehicles? So Taylor, you may want to hop in on this too. But
yes.
For contract, okay.
Do your DA
Yes.
127.
Yes.
That does not change.
Perfect. Okay, Corby Lockwood, PIC staff have previously been told they need to submit a travel request if a vehicle is reserved from the fleet, and the only expense would be the gas for the fleet. Is this still the expectation?
Yes. Even though we anticipate gas being the only expense, we don't really have a way to guarantee that. And this is kind of our way to show that the travel you were engaging in was pre-approved. So if you end up getting a flat tire, you end up getting into an accident, there could always be unanticipated expenses that may come up. And this is our kind of backup for the agency to show that you were engaged in a work activity. It was pre-approved. So, worst case scenario, God forbid you get in an accident and you're hurt on the job. This is your kind of backup that, workman's comp or whatever may be needed. You were engaging in work activities. They were pre-approved. We knew what you were doing and why you were doing it. And it's also our ability to pay for things like a tow truck or a spare tire if that comes up. So yeah, even though it seems kind of routine, yes, we do still need it, even if the only anticipated expense is gas.
Very good. That's a good explanation, so people understand the why. Penny Thompson. So if a surveyor has a joint provider meeting on a Thursday, our normal last day of the week, we would just need to fill out the form for the conference registration, correct?
I'm not sure I understand if there's
Penny,
a
do you
meeting
want to
on a
pop on?
Thursday.
Penny, why don't you hop on, unmute, and then you can ask the question. Penny, can you hear me? Okay, if not, we'll come back to this question later. All right, Melissa Boyd, if we need to extend an on-site visit for a day that was unanticipated in the original K1, should we submit a whole new K1 or just the additional component of the travel?
Just the additional component of the travel that'll go onto the expense report. You'll want to have some kind of documentation that's pre-approved or like an email to your supervisors. So obviously your supervisor should know where you're at all times and what you're doing. So if you have to extend it out, Just attach your email to your supervisor onto the expense report to show why it's going longer than what was pre-approved. But we don't need an entire new K1 for that. The travel itself was already authorized, so whatever you have to do throughout the course of that that's work related will be covered.
Okay.
Right.
Is it okay if I just add, just make sure I understand? Is it okay?
Uh-huh.
So let's just say that they Taylor and I and everyone signed off on a team member's travel. Then they find out that the charts are enormous and they need that extra day. They would not submit a K1 for, like, if they were supposed to come back on a Wednesday and they were staying, into Thursday, they wouldn't need to submit a K1 with a Thursday night, Wednesday to Thursday hotel, Wednesday to Thursday per diem and all the things, or would they?
They would not.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Great. I was just going to restate that. So perfect. Thank you. Jenna McLean, can the M and IE be updated to have correct rates? I don't know what the M and IE is.
Meals and incidental expenses.
Thank you.
It should be updated with accurate rates. They may have changed October 1st. We'll try to keep on top of that. So if they're not accurate right now, they will be soon.
I'll take that as a to do to make sure that we check on it. How do you want the DA 127 attached from John Stahlbomber? I think that would just follow the normal attachment process, right, Daniel?
Yeah, just attach it onto the KDAD 1. So there's a area at the top to attach.
Perfect. All right. So Mark Ditzler is asking a follow-up question. Out-of-state meals are considerably more expensive than Kansas. Can this be taken into account on the new forms?
Yes, it is taken into account on the new forms. So I will pull up the out-of-state form, and it's largely the same. The only real difference is that now it's got the director of accounting and the KDAD secretary included on there as required signers.
All right. So then there was some question about what does PIC stand for. That was already answered. Taylor, you talked to Katrina on the side about the DA 127. This puts us to Sissy McKenzie. If a KDADS 1 needs revised after submission, example, Fed support part of our travel, and we were not aware at the time, how do we revise or do we resubmit?
If it's already been fully approved, you would just need to send an email over to the KDAD's travel group so that they can update the funding on the travel authorization if it hasn't been completed yet. If your travel authorization has already been completed, you will just include that information with your expense report when you submit it. And that way we can make sure we have the correct funding once we actually start making the payments for that travel.
Does that make sense, Sissy?
It does, thank you.
All right. So now we're back to Penny. She says she's back, so we're going to let her hop on with her quick question, and then we're going to move on to out-of-state travel.
Okay, so surveyors have joint provider conferences, and at this time, Don Altus signs us up for that, whether we go to Topeka or Wichita. Is that something that we would have to start filling out this conference form for?
Yes. We'll need that in order to be able to authorize if you're getting a hotel to stay. I don't know the specifics of it, but because there'll be expenses and it's not part of your normal day-to-day duties, we would need the KDADS 1 for these.
Okay. Okay. Now, if it's on the last day of our week out, would we still have to fill out that K1 because we're going to the conference and going home?
It should be included on your K1 Well,
Okay.
okay, I understand. So you're already out without a K1 because you're doing your normal duties. As soon as you
Right.
find out about it, you would want to fill out a K1 for that because it'll be a separate trip, right? Because unless you're surveying in the same city where you're going to be attending that conference, you'll want to have a
Okay.
separate K1 because it'll be considered a separate travel trip.
Okay. All right. I got it. Thank you.
So great job, Daniel, getting us through these. We're going to do one more question. It's from Jonathan Pendergrass, and he wants to know about Medicaid. He wants to know if the Medicaid question aligns with what they put on their timesheets, or is that question asked for other reasons?
It should be both. I mean, if you are traveling for Medicaid purposes, you should be indicating that on your timesheet as well. You should have um, time codes and task group profiles that line up and are Medicaid funded. You can work with Michelle McGranahan for that if you don't or if you think you should. But yes, short answer, it should align with your timesheet. If you're traveling for Medicaid purposes, you should be using Medicaid funding for your payroll as well.
All right, sounds good. Let's move along. Thank you.
Coming into the out of state, there aren't any major differences in the form. It simply has a different approval routing. So all the same information up at the top. The main difference is going to be on the lodging and the meals, where it no longer will pre-populate those for you. And this again speaks to the question that was asked. It has the website link to use the gsa.gov website to get what those rates are. Because we don't control those per DOA, we just go by whatever the federal government is using. So you'll pick your fiscal year, and this is federal fiscal year, not state fiscal year. So if you're traveling like July through September, it's going to still be 24. After October 1st, it becomes 25 for the current fiscal year on the federal calendar. What state you're going to, and city is optional. You can leave it blank and it'll bring up all rates that are available in that state. So you got your standard rate, Duluth, Minneapolis, Rochester. Got your hotel rates up at the top, even broken down by month, where you're going to be staying, what the allowable rate is, and below it has the meals. And again, so total daily rate. We don't use the individual meal allowances because we break it up by quarter. So you can ignore this part. The meal on its list, it says total is where you're going to be looking for when you fill out that form. So go back in, you'll enter your number of nights, what the rate is, check-in date, check-out date. And again, if there's an alternative rate because you're staying at a conference that goes above what the allowed rate is. So if you're staying anywhere that isn't one of those three special rates and you're going above the 110, so go in that alternative rate field, what your preferred hotel is, so the conference hotel or wherever you're trying to stay, and also the justification if you're using an alternative rate that goes above that allowed rate or the standard rate that you put up above. And the same thing for the meals, your total number of days traveled and what the meal rate is for that area. It'll again automatically calculate that and carry it down. That is the only real difference between in-state and out-of-state that you will notice as a traveler. The other changes are on the back end in terms of the additional sign-offs that are required, but you won't see any of that. You'll just get your approved form at the end once everybody else is signed off. Are there any questions on that part?
Stacy, may I unmute? This is Stephanie Reinhardt.
Absolutely.
So I have two questions. The first is really a Taylor question. But in the past, we were to send the K1 for informational purposes to our director, because they don't officially sign off on it. So given the fact this is DocuSign, what is the protocol to ensure that our director is aware that we've signed off and it got sent to the next person, which is usually the commissioner?
I think Taylor hopped in, and Taylor, are you still there?
She had to
Okay,
hop off.
No worries. My second question is on the funding source. Can you push two buttons, like if it's grant funded and third party, or can you only push one button of those three?
You should only be able to push. You can push two as long as
Okay.
you're explaining both.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that'll throw an error or not. But if it only allows you to select one, you can, in your explanation below, enter that'll be both. Particularly for your group, note a lot of your travel is both, or is grant special funding anyway. So you can just type it in the funding source explanation if it doesn't allow you to select both.
Thank you.
And to the first question, if there's somebody additional that needs to get it, once you have your completed copy, you can forward it to them if you're not sending it to them as your director, as your supervisor approval. So the communication between your supervisor and the director and commissioner will have to happen at that point. You can always at any point print a copy or download a copy. So once
Okay.
you complete it, before you submit it, you could then download a copy of it with your signature, or even before your signature is applied, and email that to them just to loop them in as well.
Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
Taylor did hop on, Stephanie, and she said, please send the approved K1 to your director. This should not change your process.
Okay, sounds good. I just didn't know how,
All
but
right.
Daniel
Nope,
just
great
explained that.
question.
So
Great question. Jamie Boone, are there official procedures to follow if you're traveling out of state and get stuck after work hours? Who to contact, what to do?
It'll depend on exactly what's going on. Your first step would be to reach out to your supervisor. Beyond that, if it's after hours, obviously contact's going to be limited. With Jesse no longer being here, we are in the process of deciding who the new contact will be or what that process will be. And as soon as that's decided, we will put that out to everybody, all the commissioners, so they can let their staff know who will need to be contacted in the event. If there's some kind of travel emergency after hours, but your supervisor and then the commissioner after that would be your first points of contact.
All right, so let's see. Jamie Boone just said it was late. I had to get a hotel and all flights were grounded. So Jamie, I mean, I wish I could tell you this is Stacy. I wish I could say, well, you're going to call me and I'm going to have a credit card and I'll be able to fix all of this. That's not the situation. I mean, I do have a credit card. It's not a state of Kansas one. And so in instances such as that, I mean, you just have to do best that you can do, right? And I mean, I can't promise that Brad's going to be available or I'm going to be available or Daniel's going to be available. You just have to do what you have to do to get where you need to go. And absolutely reach out to your manager. I mean, they may have some guidance to give you, but I mean, it sounds like you handled it and did the best that you could do. And we can work on it the next day if we have to. I mean, again, nobody's going to be available 24 hours a day. So, oh, okay. She said he answered it perfectly a moment ago. Be quiet, Stacy. She didn't say the be quiet, Stacy part, but that's what she meant. Okay. So, Kevin Hickert in the lodging section, can I just state that I've made the hotel reservation myself so that KDAD's Travel will not make the reservation for me?
Yes, you can. We prefer you not do it that way, just because of the number of issues that can create if there is a canceled travel last minute, or if the rates aren't being correct or honored. The biggest issue we run into that is some hotels do not want to remove taxes. You are authorized to pay taxes. If they charge you sales tax and you pay for it directly, we can reimburse that. Um, but if they are unwilling to adjust the rate, so you book the hotel thinking they're giving you the state rate, they end up charging you $15 or $20 over that. We're only able to reimburse you for the state rate. So you would be out that extra money. That's
Does
the
that make
big
sense,
issue we run into
Kevin?
there.
And also, I mean, he hit upon a good point. They spend so much time on the travel team trying to chase down state tax. We can't pay tax, right, Daniel? And
We
so
cannot pay sales tax, correct?
sales tax, right? And so please be diligent, right? When you get your receipt and you check out, please make sure there's no tax on it. The team spends so much time chasing those down.
May I comment for a minute?
Sure, who is this?
This is Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
This is kind of in line with John Stahlbarmer's question. I'm part of the QR staff. We have been making our hotel reservations ourselves. We are one of the few that have a hotel credit card that we utilize. We generally stay in the same hotels in each town that we work in, so that has not been a problem in the past. We're all very aware of the requirement that they have to eliminate the state tax from the folio, which the hotels have been very complimentary on doing that.
Very good. Thank you. Let's see, Brian Nelson, you were talking about DocuSign, but it looks like Jonathan Pendergrass answered your question. That was talked about at the beginning. You don't have to have an account. So we should be good there. I think that answers all
Yep.
the questions.
I do
We
want to
have-
follow up on that a little bit.
Okay.
What we're recommending is signing up for the account is free, to get yourself a login that will allow you, and we do recommend it. It allows you to keep track of what you have submitted and to also see where the forms you've submitted are at in the approval process. So we do recommend it, and we kind of recommend using your work email address to sign up for that. It gives you kind of a easy place to make sure that all of your work-related travel emails are coming into your work email address, and lets you kind of create folders or sanction those however you would like to. But it gives you a place where you can keep all of the work-related travel stuff in one place. So they try to upsell you on buying other memberships. It's not necessary. The account itself is free. And as Jonathan mentioned, we will not reimburse you or pay for your upgraded membership if you select to do that option. The state has several licenses that allow us to use it, to use DocuSign, and all the different features that we have. So signing up for your free account gets you in, and we'll get all of your stuff into one place so you can track all of your KDADS ones and whatever you've submitted through this form.
Stacy, this is Stephanie again. I'm being lazy, so I don't want to.
We can't hear you, Stephanie. You'll have to speak up or speak into your microphone.
I was just saying I'm being lazy, so I don't want to type. Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
On the miscellaneous, I understand Ubering to from airport and things like that, but what does travel want us to do as far as a prediction for traveling to get a meal when you're out of state? Is there a certain, like if you're gone out of state for 5 days and you really don't know whether you're going to have to take an Uber to go get something to eat or whatever, what do you all suggest as far as a predicted number, a predicted amount?
So That's a good question. First, I want to state that we will not pay for an Uber for you to go get something to eat. We will pay for your Uber to go if you are staying at a hotel that is separate from your work responsibilities. So if you're not staying at a conference hotel and you have to Uber back and forth between where you're staying and where you're working, but after hours or personal trips, things to get meals, lunches, things like that, are not reimbursable expenses. So we would not pay for the Uber in that instance. But if you're not entirely sure exactly how much it's going to cost, you should be able through the Uber app or the website for Lyft or whatever. And most cities that have good public transportation, you can look up what their taxi rates are. Just run a quick search of what it would cost between where you expect to stay or the airport and the hotel, and then overestimate that by $5 or $10 and the number of times you're gonna have to use it. Again, this is just a pre-authorization, so you just want to get kind of a rough idea of what it may cost. So any time of the day, you can just look and see what it would cost to go from the hotel to the conference center, add $4 or $5 on top of that, and you'll probably be good in terms of how much you're estimating that to be.
All right, so we have 7 minutes left. Susan Siegelquist made a good point. In-state and out-of-state tax. And Daniel, you answered, but I want you to go ahead and cover that out loud for everyone.
Yeah,
The
just to be clear,
differential.
it is Kansas state sales tax we're not able to pay. So as a Kansas governmental entity, we are not able to pay Kansas sales tax. We do pay taxes to other entities. So like on your hotel bill, you will see things like county taxes. You will see transient guest tax. Those are valid taxes and we do pay those. It is the Kansas state sales tax we're not able to pay. That does not cover us for other states. Some hotel chains may not be entirely aware of that, so they may waive sales tax for us in other states. They're not required to, and we are able to pay that. So that is
There,
totally fine.
good clarification. Thank you, Susan, for bringing that up. Dave, we can reach out to you. We'll have somebody from the travel team reach back out to you about the private vehicle mileage, because I know that conversation had already started. And then Mark, you put out there about the Uber calculator. Thank you very much. So I think what we owe everyone, we have 6 minutes left. Daniel, on our list of things to do is the updated mills and incidentals. We're going to look at that to make sure we have the most current amounts, correct? And that is the only question we haven't answered that's been posted, or the only thing that I see on a to-do list that we owe you all. Does anybody have anything else? As Daniel said in the very beginning, if you go out to our intranet, there's a whole section that's travel, right? And the KDADS 1 form is there, the KDADS 2, for lack of, we're just giving a distinction between in and out of state. Both forms are there. You can get them right there from the KDADS intranet. There's also a step-by-step, and it says that it's for the KDADS 1 form, but I mean, essentially you're going to use it for both. It's the overview, the walkthrough, how to do it. So, yes. Let's see. We haven't gotten to the TA and the ER. Do you think we should do a separate meeting for that, Daniel? Or had we not thought that we were going to include that today?
If people want to, we can. We kind of go over those in the monthly trainings that we had planned on doing previously. All I really do in that is go over the PowerPoints that are on the intranet. That's the travel authorization training and the expense report training. So I believe we are planning on doing monthly trainings on those, at least for the foreseeable future, the next probably quarter or 6 months. We can schedule another one towards the end of this month, or we can do one beginning of December where we specifically go over those. Is there any questions in the meantime as people look over them?
Well, it turns out that I'm wrong again today. I had scheduled this until 11:30, not 11. So I think we can do it now.
Hey,
Yeah, that works for me.
this is Janet. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
It's about out-of-state travel. if you're Ubering or using Lyft or whatever it is, and you pay them, and then you get reimbursed, and you put a tip on there, and we're getting those tips denied. They won't pay us for those for the tips because it's included in meals and expenses. Yeah, there's only $5 included for tips in meals and expenses. And so basically what you're saying is that we should not tip on Uber or Lyft, and then we're jerking those people around and we get bad profiles. That's what I'm seeing. Can you explain this?
Okay, so
That-
maybe we should, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer that. That's not anything that we, being the travel team or KDAD staff, are deciding. That is policy that is set by Department of Administration that we have to follow. So they have determined that the meals and incidental expenses, the incidental expenses part of that, it includes tips. That's tips to bellhops, tips to taxi drivers, all tips throughout the day, tips on meals. Um, so they have made that determination that we
So
don't.
basically, we're told not to tip because we won't get paid back for it.
That's not exactly what he's
That's-
saying.
yeah,
He's saying
I
the
mean,
Department of
I
Administration.
know that's what you're directly saying, but what I'm hearing, and I'm sure I'm not the only person, is that if I tip an expected tip that you're supposed to give for transportation, I won't get paid back for it at all.
So
you'll
be reimbursed as per the Department of Administration guidelines.
Because
right, and
I've
so
already used the $5 that's included in my meals expenses for tips for other things. So I tip over and above that, even though it's an expectation, I'm screwed out of my money. Oh, sorry. I don't get paid back for it.
So we can
Well,
take this offline for further conversation, but we can only do as the Department of Administration gives us guidance to do.
right, and I just want to clarify, I don't know that the $5 is listed anywhere. I mean, you're getting $68 for the day, and how you choose to spend that $68 is up to you. If you eat a $50 dinner and tip $18 on that, and your tips for the day are gone, or if you eat a $40 meal and have $20 to tip your taxi driver, your Ubers, and all that stuff, I mean, that's how you choose to use that money is up to you. I mean, if you eat a $10 meal, twice a day, and you get lunch provided to you, and so you've got 48 extra dollars, and you tip another $20, and so you've got $20 and it's unaccounted for, that you're still going to be reimbursed. If you don't take a taxi at all 2 of the 3 days that you're gone, and so you're not having any tips, but you're still going to be reimbursed the full $68. We don't require receipts on that, and it's kind of treated as a per diem. So there may be a day where you have some expensive meals and you pay more in tips on that particular day, and there may be other days where you don't use that, or you eat meals that cost less than what the full amount is.
All
But
right, move on to the TA and the ER, please.
So in the normal course of travel, once you get your KDADS 1 back to you that it's been approved, you'll want to enter your travel authorization into SMART. And if you don't have a SMART login, you want to contact the SMART, not the SMART help desk, but the KDADS service desk. You want to put in a ticket with them or shoot an email over to them, to the eBits team. Brenda Masterson is normally the contact over there. She will get you set up with a login. And once you have that login, couple reminders that you do have to log in once every 30 days. Otherwise, your account will be deactivated, and it's a big ordeal to contact the help desk again, have them submit another ticket to get your user ID reinstated. Same thing if your account gets locked out for any other reason. If you put in your password wrong so many times, you have to call over to the DOA help desk team to get that unlocked. So make sure you're logging in at least once every 30 days just to keep that account active for you. And we also want to note there is a 60-minute timer on Smart. So if you start something, come back to it later, just make sure that you're saving just like you would any other document, save fairly frequently as you go through things in order to make sure that you're not losing it because of a timeout. So once you are logged into Smart, got your user ID, password. You click on the Smart homepage in the top left corner. And from the drop-down box, you'll select expenses. What you see in that drop-down list is going to vary depending upon what roles you've specifically been given. A lot of you probably won't do much work in Smart other than travel, so expenses may be all you see in there. You may see more or less, again, depending upon what your roles and your job functions specifically are. But once you are in there, on the expenses tab, you'll have travel authorizations. And from there, you want to make sure that you are on the create/modify tab. It should default to that tab. And again, these are all role dependent context tabs that you'll see here. So you may see more, you may see less, depending upon what your specific roles are. But you want to make sure you have create/modify. And you'll enter in your employee ID and click add if you're creating a new one. If you're going back in to modify one or change one, you started one, saved it for later, you'll click the find an existing value tab. That'll let you search for one. But when you're creating a new one, just enter your employee ID and click add. If you have one that's pending, open an existing value, and your search window will look like this. You can choose from recent searches. You just want to search by either authorization ID, or that drop-down box also has you the ability to search by name. So you can just search by your name. It'll pull up anything that's pending for you that you can go into edit. And if you wanted to check on the status of a travel authorization that's been submitted, so you know you already submitted it into Smart, but you're not sure where it's at, you haven't gotten the email, or you're not sure if it's been approved or not yet, you click on View, and that'll let you search by, again, authorization ID, or you can search by name, and it'll bring up a list of what you have out there and show you what the status is. So once you go in to create a travel authorization, it's going to be a lot of the same information. Again, it's going to be on that KDADS one that you've already filled out. And this information should all match what's on your KDADS one. So you've got your business purpose, which is just a drop-down box. You've got audits, meetings, maintenance, inspections, HC support activity, whatever in that drop-down box best suits the purpose of the travel you're about to engage in. Your default location, which should be set. It's not required to be set, but if you enter it in here, it will automatically populate into the additional lines you create down below. So you want to enter in, the format is the 2-letter state, comma, space, the name of the city. It does have to all be caps. This is one of the things that Smart is very particular about. It does have to follow that exact format. Otherwise, it will give you an error. When you get down to the description, just a brief description of the travel. Again, this will come off of the KDADS one, the name of the session that you enter in there, off of that KDADS one. And then your to and from dates, which will match your out of office dates on the KDADS one. It'll include all the dates you're in the travel status, not just the dates of the conference or inspections. This will be from when you leave work or home or until you return. Once that's filled in, you can start entering your individual expenses down below. And you'll start with entering the date. This date has to fall within the dates that are listed up above. So if you try to put in 11/4 to 11/6 as your travel dates, try to put in 11/3 down below, it will cause an error. So just make sure you're double checking that. Especially if you're copying from a previous travel authorization or editing something that may have had a change, to make sure that you're catching that. So your date must fall within the travel dates that are listed above. Then select your expense type. Again, it's a long list. Drop down box. It's usually easiest to start with your meals since there's going to be a line for each day of travel. You know you're going to have meals on each day. So it's easiest to just get those out of the way up front, get your meals and incidental expenses. Once that expense type is selected, it's going to pop up different context related boxes. So you got your description. And let's just be a brief description of what exactly is happening with the expense type. So meals for the day that you're traveling. So full day meals for date of travel. It automatically fills in the amount based on your location. And this is going to be, again, populating from what's up above. You get your departure day meals in the description box. Move over to the payment type. There are 5 different types, but you'll really only use 2 of them. Cash will be used for any expenses that you're paying out of pocket that you're going to be reimbursed for. And direct bill, P card, state agency credit card. Those 3 can all be used interchangeably. Functionally, there's no difference between them. And impressed advance, we won't ever use. So you can ignore that one. Just direct bill, P card, state agency credit card. Those are the 3 that you'll use for anything that the agency is directly paying for. So if we book your hotel, you've got a state credit card on file with the hotel that's being used to pay for that. If you have your own P card that's being used to pay for that, anything that we're directly paying for, you'll use one of those 3. Now, believe at your originating city, that's your official station or your home city, wherever you're departing from. And once everything is filled out, you'll just click the plus sign over on the right-hand side to add another line for each expense. So you can see up here, we've got 11/4, 11/5, 11/6. You've got meals for all 3 days. And then we can move on to the next expense type. There are 3 types of hotel expenses, depending on your type and payment. So on this expense type here, what you select here does matter. Lodging is if you're paying out of pocket. Prepaid lodging is if the agency is paying for it on non-conference travel. And prepaid lodging conference is if the agency is paying for it and you're traveling to attend a conference. So just depending upon exactly what the situation is, if you have prepaid lodging or prepaid lodging conference, it's not the end of the world if you get those mixed up. If you select one instead of the other, we can work with that. The big indicator here is whether you use the prepaid or the regular lodging. Using the wrong one will create errors in SMART on the back end that we have to deal with. So if you choose the wrong one, we will send these back, so you have to correct them. Because there will usually be a mismatch between the expense type and the payment type. So if you use regular lodging, but put that's being paid by P card or direct bill, that gets flagged and we have to send those back for correction before we can approve them at our level. But again, you've got your context related fields that show up here, the name of the hotel or the name of the conference, the payment type, the location you're traveling to, how many nights, and what the nightly rate is that you're going to be paying, and then the name of the hotel. We always use non-preferred. There is no preferred hotels. And that should be all you have to enter there. The amount, you don't have to enter it, automatically calculates that based on the number of nights and the nightly rate. And again, all of this is just flowing directly from your KDADS 1. After you've got your lodging put in, any other expenses, so any flights you may need, any other costs that are associated, such as baggage fees. Baggage costs cannot be paid up front by the agency, so you have to pay those out of pocket and be reimbursed for those. So baggage fee will always be a cash expense. And just make sure to keep any of your receipts when you're paying for parking, baggage, any other extra costs associated with travel. Ticket number is not a required field on your travel authorization, but if you enter it in here, it does flow into the expense report. So you've already got your ticket booked, and you've got your confirmation from us that has your ticket number, and then you can put it in there now, but it's not required to do so. Once you've got all of your lines entered for all of your expenses you're anticipating, double check that your potential expenses are listed, the amounts and payment types are correct. The amounts don't have to be perfect, but they should be overestimated to make sure enough funds are encumbered, and verify the amount listed matches the amount on your KDADS 1 form. Again, this is just taking your KDADS 1 that was approved, putting it into SMART, where we're going to actually encumber the funds and make it official. If you need to stop working on your travel authorization, something comes up, just wanted to save it as you're working on it because you're afraid it's taking a while, you may time out or something. Up at the top right, you got your save for later. But once you're ready to submit it, you got everything entered, double check, make sure that everything looks right. You'll click your summary and submit button. That brings you up to the summary where you've got your total projected expenses, any denied expenses, total authorized amount. This is where you're going to enter your notes. In your notes, you can include the reason for your travel, name of the conference. Essentially, again, all the stuff that's on your KDADS 1, just explain the justification for the travel, what's going to be happening. So that in the event that this gets pulled for audit, somebody who is not you or not necessarily familiar with the exact travel that you're doing would be able to explain it. Again, just about your KDADS 1, all relevant information is in there. Just click the add notes button. That will populate it down below where it's got the bolded notes section. So multiple notes can be added by multiple different people. They'll all show up here. But once you got your note typed in and added, you click the OK button. That'll take you back to the authorization. You can now see that that picture has changed. It now has a little text bubble in there. That will verify that your notes have been saved. And you can click to add your attachments. When you're adding your attachments, having all your documentation smart allows the travel team to help with any questions that come up later. Again, it gives us our documentation for audit if it comes up. It also gives you a central location to get all your documentation when you're creating your expense report after your travel's done. If it's all uploaded here, you don't have to go back and dig through a half dozen different emails trying to find all the different receipts and all the different authorizations and everything going back and forth on it. So just click the add attachment button. It'll open up a file finder dialog box, which I'll be familiar with, that we use in Windows. Your approved KDADS 1, your conference agenda, hotel reservation, airline receipt, any other documentation for your trip should be attached here. And you should not submit your travel authorization until you have your reservations and attach them in here. Again, once you've got that completed, you'll see here it's been updated. You now have your number of attachments listed there to verify that they're all saved. And this is where you'll check your certification box so that you certify their reasonable estimates, they comply with the expense policy, and submit your travel authorization. Once that's done, you may receive an email based upon how your SMART profile is set up. If you don't receive that email, you can check your SMART profile on your homepage. It's got My System Profile. In there, you can see what your email address is set to, verify that it's set to receive your business emails. It'll also have some of your personal information in there. So that's where you can make sure that all that information is accurate. But from there, it'll go to your supervisor, and from there, it flows over to Cassandra and the travel team. So if there are any issues or any problems with it, that's where that will be caught.
Daniel,
Shane.
we have a quick question from Jenny Allman. She's wondering about if we could show how to copy a TA.
Yes. So copying a travel authorization. I don't have any in there. We can pull up somebody that does have one real quick. Hopefully Brad won't mind. So when you get into the blank credit travel authorization page, you can select to quick start and populate from. Drop down box, you can use an existing authorization. So if you travel frequently, doing the same type of stuff to the same type of places, you can just pick an existing authorization and click go. That will bring up any travel authorizations you have in Smart between the dates that are up above. You can change those dates. It'll bring up more. So if you're going to be doing the same type of thing, you can just select. It will pull in all of that information off of that travel authorization. And it immediately flags, because all of these dates are in the past, you cannot authorize travel that's already happened. So anything with the date that's in the past is going to be flagged, but you should be updating that anyway. Again, this is where you'll update the specifics for this particular travel. You change your dates, change your description, but if you're frequently doing the same type of stuff, all of your stuff will already be in there, pre-populated. So you just have to change dates, change particulars for this specific trip, but that will pull in the travel authorization that you've already used. Shani asked if he wants surveys to attach their hotel reservation to the travel authorization. That's not necessary for the surveyors.
We should be all caught up on questions now.
Okay. Where to go when you have a sent back report and it needs to be revised? Yes, that is the same place. So if you're needing to make any kind of changes, there are two places. So first, if you realize you need to make a change before it's been sent back, you realize you need to add something or you forgot something, you'll go to view. You can search by name or authorization ID. When you search in view mode, there is a withdraw option. So if you need to make any changes to it before it's been fully approved, you can withdraw the travel authorization. That will allow it to be edited by you. So once you have withdrawn it, or if you've got an email that's been sent back, you go into create/modify, search, find an existing value. Rather than typing in your employee ID, you just go to find an existing value. You can search by your name. See if Brad has any out there. He doesn't, but that's where you'll search by your name. You can just type in your last name. It'll bring up any travel authorizations for your name that are needing to be edited or able to be edited. So anything that's in a pending status will show up in these search results, and that's where you can go to make any changes to one that's been sent back. Brian, yes, that is correct. Make sure you've got your reservations made before you submit the travel authorization. That'll help to make sure you've got your numbers correct for things like your hotel or your flight. It just makes it a little bit more accurate for us to have those numbers in there and to have those things attached. Fortunately, with the KDES one already approved, the approval process for the travel authorization, once all of that's done and once you got the accurate numbers, goes pretty quickly. So it's not going to hurt anything to wait until shortly before the travel, until we've got those reservations completed before submitting that into Smart. Smart portion was a little bit quicker. Well, if you're running into that, what usually happens is that there's been a change made in Sharp by HR. Anytime they make any kind of a change in Sharp, that automatically updates and flows into Smart. And sometimes the department numbers that they have in Sharp don't necessarily align with what's being used in Smart. If you shoot an email over to the KDAD's travel team, we can get that updated back to what it needs to be for you, and we can get that corrected so that doesn't happen anymore. The issue is that they don't notify us when they make those changes, so we don't find out about it to be able to fix it until you guys tell us. Sean, what was your question?
So it was about the TAs. And waiting for confirmed bookings. I was always told that we couldn't get things booked until we put a TA in. Is that changing?
With the new electronic KDADS 1, as soon as that is approved, we can start booking things. So you will want to wait until you have the confirmation that your hotel and flight are booked before you enter the Smart travel authorization.
Okay. Thank you.
So Daniel, do you want to go back to some of these questions that we had before, or do you want to keep going through here? We're at 11:23, 11:24.
Yeah, we can go back. Do you have any that?
All
Want
right,
me
so
to-
Shani, I'm sorry. She was asking about attaching the hotel reservations to the TAs. She wanted to know if you want the surveyors to start attaching the hotel reservations to the travel authorizations.
Yes, for Shani. No, it's not necessary for surveyors to attach their hotel reservations to travel authorizations. Surveyors have a slightly different process than the rest of the KDAD staff.
Perfect. Okay, Corby, why do we have to do a K1 and a TA?
We kind of went over this a little bit earlier when it was asked if we could combine them. It's because there is a separate approval process for them. There aren't enough approval levels within SMART for us to get all the approvals that we need in order to be able to approve travel. So your supervisor, your commissioner, budget, FISC, all have to sign off on travel before it can be authorized. There simply aren't enough approval levels within SMART to accommodate that. But once that approval is actually entered, we then have to find a way to put it into SMART because that's where the actual accounting side of it is done to actually encumber the money. So we do have to have a separate process.
All right, Jenna McLean, 2 questions. Can you review where to go when you have sent back a report and it needs revised?
Okay. Yeah, I did go over that. That's where you'll go into
Okay.
view the travel authorization if you're needing to withdraw it, to make changes that you found, or create/modify and find an existing value if you've had one that's been sent back that you need to make changes to resubmit.
All right, sorry for the duplication. I guess we got to hear it twice. Now everybody knows exactly. I think you answered Twyla's, right? And Brian's. So I think we're caught up now.
Okay. Real quick, we'll run over the expense report training. It's fairly short because hopefully you've got your travel authorization into SMART and that makes it much easier. So enter an expense report into SMART. Again, you'll have your user ID, your password to log into SMART. again, got to keep it active by logging in once every 30 days. If you don't know your user ID, or if you have to have your password reset, reach out to the Smart Service Desk if number listed. If you've been locked out because of password attempts that didn't work, they will reset your password. If you've been inactivated because you didn't log in for 30 days, that will have to go through the KDAD's help desk and Brenda Masterson. But again, you'll go to the same place, click your smart home page, click expenses. Now you'll just select the expense report instead of travel authorizations. And again, create/modify will be the default tab where you'll enter in a new expense report, or if you have one that's pending, it's where you make changes for it by using the find an existing value. And again, the process is the same to withdraw one. If you realize you need to make changes before it's been sent back, click the view, and then view, you can withdraw the expense report once you search for it and pull it up. Once you're in the expense report, you will populate from a travel authorization and click the go button. That'll bring up that same screen as if you're populating a travel authorization where you can search for any approved travel authorizations. Approved is going to be the keyword in here. If it didn't make it all the way through the approval process, it will not show up. So that's why we try to stay on top of that and make sure that we're sending out emails, letting people know if they've got something that needs to be finalized and approved before their travel takes place. But once you have your travel authorization you're going to use, you'll just click on the select button. Anything that's available to be used will be listed there. That will automatically pull in all of your expenses that were listed on the travel authorization. So you want to verify that all the charges have been loaded into the expense report. You can still add additional lines if something came up that wasn't anticipated. This is where you can do that. And lines can be deleted for expenses that were anticipated but weren't incurred. So if you had some for cab fare and you ended up getting a free shuttle from the airport to your hotel and back, so you didn't have any cab fare on this trip, you can delete that line. And if you end up, as was discussed before, stuck overnight, your flights got canceled, you have to get an extra hotel room for the night, you can add that line there. The additional hotel line, whatever other expenses were associated with that. You want to update your amounts. This is where your meals and incidental worksheet will come into play. That again is on the intranet. But when you're in that form, at your day of departure, this is set based on your departure time. Again, you're looking at column B and your daily rating column C. If any meals are provided to you on that day, that goes into column E. And again, make sure you're using the 24-hour format with a period instead of a colon. So 8 a.m. is 8.00. 5:30 p.m. is 17.30. The day of return, you enter your return time in column B, daily rate in column C. If you have any meals provided, again, that goes in column E. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. BL is breakfast, lunch. BD is breakfast, dinner. LD is lunch, dinner. And for the full days, when you're in travel status the entire day, you only need to enter in the daily rate in column C, which meals are provided. You can do this for those if you're traveling for additional days. But once you've got all that figured out, you update those dates with those amounts. As long as the meals provided were entered on the worksheet, you don't have to enter them again in SMART. So you don't have to do the per diem deductions anymore. As long as they're on your meals deductions worksheet that you should be attaching, you don't have to do that twice. We'll update the amounts of the other expenses based on your receipts. So these amounts will be the full amount from the receipt, including any fees. So if you went to Virginia and paid Virginia sales tax, you've got your transient guest tax, all that stuff. The total amount on the receipt needs to match. And again, verify that there's no Kansas state sales tax included in those charges. If it is on there, you will have to get a corrected one. You as the traveler are responsible for making sure that you are charged the correct amounts. So if any changes or corrections need to be made, you'll have to get that done before we can approve your expense report. But once all that's done, you verify the amounts are all correct. You'll again click the summary and submit button. If at any point you just save it to come back to it later, you're waiting on a receipt to be corrected, but you've got everything entered in here already. You can click save for later. That way you can come back and search for it and update it later. But you've got your summary and submit. Again, your notes and your attachments. And once you verify that all that information is correct, there's a verification box to say that you certify that they're all true and accurate, and submit the expense report to put it into the workflow, which will then allow you to search for it in the view mode to check its status. I know I kind of rushed through that. We're kind of running out of time here, trying to make sure they got a chance to get through it all. There are a couple of questions. Mark Dietler wanted to know if there was a smart reset contact. We don't have a name. It's just the Smart Help Desk. It's on your homepage when you log into Smart. So on your homepage, or you log into the Kansas Service Desk, that's 785-368-8000. So if you need to reset your password or your account has been locked out due to too many failed password attempts, that's who you'll call. If it is internal because you didn't log in and so your account has been inactivated, or you call the help desk or the service desk and they tell you it's been inactivated, you'll submit a ticket to EBITS, which is the KDAD's help desk. I think Brenda Masterson is currently the smart security contact within that group. But I would recommend just reaching out to EBITS as a team. That way, if Brenda's out for the day or whatever, somebody can cover that for her and you'll get a faster response. Jamie Boone asked when she starts her day when she's traveling. So it starts when you actually start traveling. If you come into the office for a couple of hours before driving out, your time will start when you leave the office. So if you come in and work from 8 to 10:30 and you leave at 10:30 in the morning, 10:30 will be your start time for the travel. In that particular instance, because it all goes by quarters, it's not going to make much difference. The only real time it will make any difference is if you come in before 6 a.m., since that 6 a.m. quarter starts, that covers that whole 6-hour period from 6 a.m. to 11:59. So if you're working at 5:30 and then leave the office at 8:30, that's the only time it would make any difference there. But it'll be when you actually leave the office to begin your travel, start driving to your work destination in a different city.
So it looks like we're all up to date on the questions. Daniel, thank you. This is great. I mean, I'm loving the new KDADS 1 and 2 forms. I hope everybody else sees the benefit that those are going to bring. It's going to be so much easier. Thank you to Tyler for creating this in DocuSign for us. Clap, clap, clap. Great job. I just put the travel email in the chat, kdads.travel@ks.gov. So if you have any further questions, you can send them to that group. Huge round of applause for Daniel Rogers for putting this all together, but also for Gina Hafner, who does so much of the legwork on a lot of travel, and also Cassandra Barkley, new last name Parker. This team is amazing, and they do the best they can do every single day for you guys to make sure that your travel goes smoothly. Are there absolutely areas that we can improve upon? Yes, but we're working hard to make sure we're taking care of you every single day. Let's see. I put a couple of things in the chat as well, just showing you on the intranet where to find the new forms, where to find the step-by-step, everything that Daniel just went through. He has training documents out there on the intranet. So I did a snap or a snippet and I put them out there so you can see where to go so that you can refer to that. This has been recorded, so you'll be able to access it via the chat. And we do still owe you the updated meals and incidentals once Daniel looks at that, and we'll send it out to the group, or, well, actually, we'll probably post it here, right, Daniel? Or it'll just be updated in the doc.
Yep, it'll just keep it in the document.
Perfect. So, without further ado, thank you, everyone. I know we went 6 minutes over, but, I think this is very much needed. And we're going to look at doing more of these trainings throughout the year. So, great questions. Thank you all so much for participating. And Teresa Singh, I'm sorry that you were sitting in the Black Elantra by yourself, that nobody met you there for the meeting. Dang it. Since that's where the invite went. Everybody have a good day. Bye.